Russia didn't see this coming. Russia spent billions building a drone army that could overwhelm any air defense system on Earth. Hundreds of drones every single night. And Ukraine was running out of missiles to stop them. Then something changed. A small, fast, almost invisible machine showed up on the battlefield. And Russian drones started falling out of the sky in ways nobody expected. Welcome back to War News. Here's something most people don't realize about the war in Ukraine right now. The biggest battles aren't always the ones you see on the front lines. Some of the most consequential fights in this war are happening in the dark, literally in the skies above Ukrainian cities, every single night, while civilians sleep in basements and soldiers track radar screens with their eyes wide open. Russia figured something out early. You don't have to win on the ground if you can destroy a country's power grid, water supply, and heating infrastructure from the air.
Make the population freeze in the dark long enough, and the will to resist starts to crack. That's the strategy and the weapon of choice. Hundreds of cheap, slow, but devastatingly effective attack drones, known as the Gerran family, launched in relentless waves, night after night, aimed directly at Ukrainian cities. Ukraine has spent the better part of 3 years building an air defense network to stop them. Fighters, jets, Patriot missiles, German Gepard systems, electronic warfare, layers upon layers of protection. And it's impressive, but it's also expensive, and it's straining under pressure. So here's the question Ukraine has been trying to answer. How do you stop hundreds of drones every single night without burning through missiles that cost millions of dollars each, and without leaving your defenses exposed to the next wave?
The answer, or at least part of it, might have just rolled onto a Ukrainian battlefield on 4 wheels. In early January 2026, Ukraine's Air Force Command released video footage that caught the defense world's attention. In the clip, a Ukrainian operator going by the call sign Shorty speaks calmly into the camera. He says his crew has destroyed 21 Shahed drones. He says the machine behind him keeps the sky locked down, and before that he mentions his crew was deployed to eastern Ukraine, where they destroyed all targets. They engaged 21 drones, all targets destroyed. The machine he's talking about, it's called the Tempest. Now here's what makes this story even more interesting. That video wasn't the first time the Tempest appeared in Ukraine. A heavily blurred version of the same footage had actually been leaked several months earlier, back in October 2025, which means this system wasn't just sent to Ukraine and shown off for PR purposes. It was quietly tested, quietly deployed, and quietly racking up kills long before anyone made it official.
That kind of operational secrecy tells you something. It tells you the people involved were confident enough in this system to use it for real, but cautious enough to keep it quiet until it proved itself. So what exactly is the Tempest? Where did it come from? And why does it matter so much right now? Let's break it all down. The Tempest is a counter-drone weapons system developed by V2X, a defense contractor based in Virginia. It was publicly unveiled for the first time in October 2025 at the Association of the United States Army, known as AUSA, exhibition in Washington, D.C. At its core, the concept behind the Tempest is deceptively simple. Take a missile platform that's already proven deadly accurate, put it on a vehicle that's fast, rugged, and hard to detect, optimize the whole thing specifically to kill drones, and make sure it can get in, fire, and disappear before anyone can target it back.
The missile V2X chose is one of the most battle-tested air-to-ground weapons in American military history. The AGM-114 Hellfire, specifically the longbow variant. We'll get into why that particular variant matters in a minute. But first, let's talk about the platform itself. The Tempest isn't mounted on a tank. It's not a big, slow, expensive armored vehicle. It rides on a lightweight 4x4 off-road chassis, reportedly a Can-Am Maverick X3 side-by-side utility vehicle. If that sounds surprisingly low-tech for a missile system, that's actually the whole point. V2X built this machine using what the defense industry calls COTS components, commercial off-the-shelf parts. That means the mechanical and structural components are commercially available, easy to source, easy to repair, and much cheaper to manufacture at scale than custom military hardware. The result is a vehicle that can go where heavier platforms can't. Rugged terrain, narrow roads, positions close to the front line. It's fast enough to keep pace with mechanized infantry, nimble enough to operate with special forces, and light enough to be transported by air if needed.
And perhaps most importantly, it has an extremely low physical profile, meaning it's much harder to detect visually than a traditional missile launcher. Now, the twin missile launchers are mounted on either side of the vehicle's roof, elevated and balanced, giving the system wide engagement angles without requiring the whole vehicle to reposition. That's a smart piece of engineering. The operator can engage targets across a wide arc without telegraphing movement, then immediately drive off after launching. Here's where things get really interesting. The AGM-114L Longbow Hellfire is not your average missile. It was originally developed for one specific purpose, to give the US Army's AH-64D Apache Longbow helicopter the ability to fire and forget, meaning the pilot launches the missile and the missile finds the target on its own. No laser, no continuous operator guidance, no keeping your aircraft exposed while you wait for impact.
The Longbow variant achieves this through an active millimeter wave radar seeker built into the missile itself. Once it's launched, the missile actively scans for its target, locks on and guides itself in. It doesn't care about weather, it doesn't care about smoke or dust or the chaos of a battlefield. It works in rain, fog, night conditions that would compromise optical or laser-guided systems. That fire and forget capability is absolutely critical for how the Tempest operates. The moment a Longbow missile leaves the launcher, the Tempest vehicle can move. The operator doesn't need to stay parked, exposed, holding a laser designator on the target while counting the seconds until impact. The vehicle is already relocating before the missile has even reached its target. That's what turns the Tempest from just another missile platform into something tactically very different. The Longbow missile carries a 20-pound warhead and has an effective range of roughly 5 miles. For comparison, the Girand drones, it's designed to intercept travel at altitudes that sit right in that engagement window. The missile is more than capable of reaching them, targeting them with precision and destroying them before they reach their destination. For scale, by 2021, more than 87,000 Hellfire missiles of all variants had been produced. Estimates suggest somewhere between 10,000 and 14,000 of those were specifically the Longbow AGM-114L variant, and a significant portion of those remain available in stockpiles.
That's not a missile the US is scrambling to manufacture from scratch. The inventory already exists. One thing that makes the Tempest design philosophy distinct is what it doesn't have. A lot of air defense systems try to be everything at once. Long-range radar, short-range radar, optical sensors, electronic warfare, the full suite. That makes them powerful, but also expensive, heavy, and complex to operate and maintain. The Tempest takes a different approach. It's equipped with what's described as a radar-type radar, a compact directional radar, focused specifically on tracking and engaging targets in its immediate engagement zone, rather than scanning the entire sky. The system is intentionally designed to integrate into a networked battlefield environment, where external detection and tracking assets, whether that's a broader radar network, drone spotters, or linked air defense systems, provide early warning and target queuing. The Tempest receives that data, activates, engages, and moves. This matters a lot in the context of Ukraine specifically. Ukraine has spent years building exactly this kind of networked air defense infrastructure. There's an extensive network of radar stations, thermal sensors, and observation posts across the country dedicated to detecting and tracking incoming drones. When a Gerun is detected, that information flows through a command network that allocates the appropriate intercept response. The Tempest is built to plug directly into that kind of network. It doesn't need to be a self-contained detection system. It just needs to receive the cue, get into position, fire, and leave. That specialization is actually a strength in Ukraine's operating environment, not a weakness. To understand why the Tempest matters, you have to understand the problem Ukraine has been staring down for the past year and a half.
Russia didn't invent the Girand drone. That distinction belongs to Iran, where it was originally designed as the Shahed 136. But Russia reverse engineered it, adapted it, and industrialized production to a degree that Iran never did. By late 2024, Russia reportedly had the production capacity to manufacture up to 500 Girands and decoy drones per day. On a typical nightly raid, Ukraine faces anywhere from 100 to 600 airborne threats, a mix of Geran attack drones and cheaper Gerber decoys, specifically designed to drain Ukraine's defenses before the real strike arrives. Ukraine's response has been layered. Fighter jets intercept high-value cruise and ballistic missiles. Patriot and Iris-T batteries protect key cities. German Flakpanzer Gepard systems, armed with twin 35mm autocannons, have proven highly effective against the standard German variants, flying at low altitude and moderate speed. But Russia adapted. The newer Geran 3 is jet-powered instead of propeller-driven, significantly faster, and flies at higher altitude, specifically to get above the effective engagement ceiling of gun-based systems like the Gepard. And the new Geran 5 variants reportedly cost upward of $100,000 each, packed with more sophisticated navigation and targeting technology. That creates a gap below the reach of Ukraine's expensive missile systems.
Above the reach of its guns, the drones fly through that band of airspace almost untouched. The Gepard fires ahead ammunition at roughly $1,000 per round, an excellent cost-to-kill ratio against slow, low-flying drones. But it simply cannot reach the newer, faster, higher-flying variants. Patriot missiles can, but at $4 million to $7 million per interceptor, burning them against $100,000 drones is financially unsustainable over time. Ukraine needs something in the middle, something with missile-grade range and altitude capability, but closer to gun system costs. Something mobile enough to survive the front, rugged enough to operate without a support convoy, and fast enough to shoot and disappear. That is almost word for word the design brief for the Tempest. Here's the distinction that makes the Tempest genuinely interesting from a strategic standpoint, and it's a point that often gets overlooked. Ukraine's high-end air defense systems, the Patriots, the Iris-Ts, are not positioned near the front lines. They can't be. They're too valuable. They're placed well behind the front, protecting major cities like Kyiv, Kharkiv, Dnipro, and Odessa.
Losing even one of those systems to a precision Russian strike would be a catastrophic blow to Ukraine's ability to defend its population. Russia, for its part, doesn't typically target the actual front with Geran drones. Frontline positions get artillery, FPV drones and glide bombs. The Garans go after rear area infrastructure, power stations, fuel depots, logistics hubs, port facilities, and yes, residential buildings. That means there's a large swath of territory between the active front line and the major cities where Ukraine's air defences are thinner, and that's exactly where the Tempest becomes most valuable, not as a replacement for Patriot batteries, but as a mobile, forward-deployed missile system capable of engaging drones in that mid-zone before they complete their journey. A single Tempest, operating with a small crew, could be positioned in a rural area 20 to 30 miles from a city. When the detection network alerts them to incoming drones, they move into position, engage and relocate. No massive radar footprint, no large logistics train, no static position for Russian reconnaissance to target, just a small, fast vehicle that appears, fires and vanishes. Scale that to dozens or ideally 100 or more Tempests spread across Ukraine's depth, and you start to see the picture. A distributed mobile missile defense layer that can engage the newer, faster, higher-flying Geran variants that currently slip through the gaps in Ukraine's air defense network. No weapons system is perfect, and the Tempest is no exception. It's worth being honest about that. The two-missile payload is a real constraint. In a swarm attack involving dozens of drones simultaneously, a single Tempest can only directly engage two targets before it needs to reload. That makes mass deployment, not individual units, the key to effectiveness. A handful of Tempests won't solve Ukraine's drone problem, but a coordinated network of them spread across a wide area and integrated into Ukraine's detection and command network could genuinely shift the balance. The narrow-field radar also means the system depends on external queuing to work at peak efficiency. If that external network is degraded through jamming strikes or disruption, the Tempest effectiveness drops. That's a tactical vulnerability that any serious deployment would need to account for. And the range, while adequate for its intended mission, is significantly shorter than Ukraine's major missile systems.
The longbow reaches out to about 5 miles, plenty for its role as a forward-deployed interceptor, but it's not going to anchor a city's air defences on its own. Still, these are engineering trade-offs, not fundamental flaws. And given that the Tempest has apparently already been quietly refined in combat conditions in Ukraine for months before its public acknowledgement, there's every reason to expect those trade-offs will be addressed in future iterations. Ukraine has a proven track record of taking emerging technologies, pushing them in real combat, feeding that data back to manufacturers, and accelerating development timelines that would take years in a peacetime defense procurement cycle. The Tempest is almost certainly already benefiting from that process. Here's the bigger picture. The war in Ukraine has become the world's most advanced live laboratory for drone warfare and counter-drone technology. Every nation with a serious defense establishment is watching what works, what fails, and what the future of aerial combat looks like. The Tempest deployment, covert at first, increasingly public now, is part of that ongoing experiment. If it continues to perform the way Shorty and his crew suggest it has, the Tempest isn't just a Ukraine story. It's a preview of what mobile counter-drone systems will look like in the US Army's future operating concept. The combination of fire-and-forget missile technology, commercial-grade mobility, low profile, and networked integration is exactly what modern distributed warfare demands. Russia isn't slowing down its drone program. If anything, every indication points toward escalation. Faster drones, higher flying drones, more sophisticated navigation, larger swarm sizes. Ukraine's ability to counter that escalation will determine not just the outcome of this war, but the shape of conflicts for decades to come. The Tempest is one piece of that answer, and for now, somewhere in Ukraine, a small crew with a call sign you've probably never heard is loading 2 more longbow missiles onto a buggy, waiting for the radar ping that tells them another Geron is inbound, and then they're going to drive out into the dark, fire, and disappear. That's the story of the Tempest, and it's far from over. Stay with us at War News as we track every development on this system and every major weapon shaping the battlefield right now. If this breakdown hit different for you, subscribe because we cover the systems that actually matter in the depth they deserve. We'll see you in the next one.